How many of you heard about this UPA Act? I think those who are reading the newspapers, you can understand. And what was the recent issue on Sunday's newspaper? Have you read? There was a news issue. There was a news on Sunday's newspaper with respect to UPA. Do you know that? Sudha Bharadwaj has given an automatic bail on technical grounds. Under which act she was arrested? And why she was so long been in jail for these many days? Because your UPA is so strict. I'll come to that. Unlawful activities, Prevention Act. Prevention Act. Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. There was another act called, another provision in the Indian Penal Code called sedition. Actually, I have discussed that sedition with other batch of people because it has become always a confusion for me. Which topic should I take for you and which topic should I take for them? But we'll see whether sedition, if it is possible, I'll try to deal. But anyhow, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Now I'm not directly coming into this Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. I'll start with the fundamental rights and I'll come to this UPA later. Okay. See, the Article 19 is very important under fundamental rights. Article 19(1) deals about all the 6 fundamental rights, and those who have completed the polity, at least to that portion of fundamental rights, they can understand. Freedom of speech and expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of association. These are all the things. Okay, freedom to movement anywhere, freedom to reside anywhere. These are the rights mentioned under Article 19A. Okay, these are the rights mentioned under Article 19. These are very fundamental in nature. Generally, those who have completed polity, they read, or even those people having an idea of fundamental rights, they think like Constitution has given the fundamental rights. That is wrong. Constitution recognizes the fundamental rights. Because these rights are not given by the Constitution, just the Constitution recognized it. I'll tell you the difference. See, there is a freedom of speech and expression. That means what? You have a freedom to speak anything, whatever you want. And you are speaking just because it is mentioned in the Constitution. You haven't spoken prior to 1950, January 26. Is it the government of India is giving that right? No. As a human being, you inherit some rights. As a human being, you will get some rights. But Constitution is giving a guarantee that at any cost, I am here to protect this right. If anyone, especially if the state violates this right, I am ready to protect you. That is what the meaning of fundamental rights. And if you complete the fundamental right, you can understand the entire philosophy of fundamental rights. Fundamental rights are fundamental in nature. No one has given any right to you. You just because born as a human being, you are exercising these rights, but Constitution has recognized some rights. And why it has recognized? Because Constitution is protecting these rights. And for these rights, if you're looking into the American Constitution or Britain Constitution or any other constitution, they haven't started with these fundamental rights. Initially, they drafted their own constitution, but over a period of time, the people in their countries has fought for these rights, and ultimately they gained some rights in the course of their journey. But when it comes to the Indian Constitution, no one has demanded for any rights. Did we ever demanded for rights? Is there any movement that we fought for the fundamental rights? No, we just fought for the independence. And after that, our constitutional makers have moved around the world, and they have took the different points in different constitutions, and ultimately we have given fundamental rights. And this fundamental right starts from Article 14 to Article 31. 12, 13 is also part of fundamental rights. No one has asked. We have gifted with fundamental rights. And the first amendment to the Constitution of United States of America is Bill of Rights. That means they have introduced the fundamental rights with a first amendment in the Constitution. But when it comes to India, when it comes to Indian Constitution, we have given every freedom to the Indian people with the enactment of our Constitution. But over a period of time, we started restricting that fundamental rights. Whereas in case of other countries, they have started a plain constitution without any rights, but over a period of time, they have started strengthening the fundamental rights. But in our country, because of one or other reason and the peculiarities that we have given full rights to the citizens, but over a period of time, we have started restricting the fundamental rights. That restriction started from first Constitution Amendment itself. First Constitution Amendment itself. I'll tell you. There was a case called Champakam Dorai Rajan versus State of Madras. And those who are completed fundamental rights, I think they might have some idea. In the Champakam Dorai Rajan versus State of Madras, she questioned the reservations. Because at that point of time, Tamil Nadu is having reservations. Tamil Nadu reservation is having a long history. The reservations were there in the Madras presidency only, not in the present Tamil Nadu state. That is why there is a special care for these Tamil Nadu's reservations. And immediately Supreme Court said, on the one hand, you are saying everyone is equal before law and law protects everyone equally. Why you are giving these reservations and all? So they have struck down the reservations. I'll give you another example. After independence, and we are all aware, India has divided on the name of religion. And some people started using their freedom of speech and expression. The then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru thought that if we allow this type of freedom of speech and expression, we may not maintain good relations with the other countries, especially with the Pakistan. Because some people are criticizing Pakistan. Some people are criticizing the policies of Pakistan. And you know what type of criticisms comes. And then he decided, okay, we have given full freedoms to the people, but perhaps it is not necessary. Then we said, in the 1951, with the first Constitution Amendment, we imposed some restriction to the rights given to the people. We said everyone is equality before law, but we said like, no, the educational and socially backward people are not equal. They are below, so they must have a special thing. So I'm not getting into that aspect, but I'm getting into a different aspect of these restrictions to 1901. Actually, when we have drafted our constitution, 19(1)(a) is a freedom of speech and expression. For this, the limitations are mentioned in 19(2) itself. What are the limitations for the freedom of speech and expression? They have mentioned in the constitution like decency, morality, defamation, contempt of court, undermining the security of the country, or to overthrow the state. These are all restrictions that were there in the original constitution. That means what? You can use your freedom of speech and expression, but not to bring down the decency. You cannot speak whatever the unseen or unspoken or unlistenable words, whatever you want. No, there must be a decency in our communication. If the decency is missing, then definitely we will curtail your freedom of speech and expression. Morality And the definition to the morality is something different. It is given by the Supreme Court. There are some morals in the society we need to protect, and our speeches must protect that morality. Defamation. You should not defame other persons. I have a freedom of speech and expression, so I can defame anybody. No, that should not be the case. Contempt of the court. You cannot speak whatever you want against the judiciary. And you cannot speak such words which will really bring a security threat to your country. These are all the exemptions given in the constitution itself. That means if your freedom of speech and expression violates any of these things, then you don't have such a right. You will have a right to use within these restrictions. Within these restrictions. But in the year 1951, we have brought the first amendment to the constitution. There what we have written is, we have added 3 more restrictions to the existing restrictions. 3 more restrictions. So what are the 3 more restrictions? One is friendly relations with foreign countries or foreign states. Friendly relations, because if you don't know this history now, you will read Article 19 and you will read Article 19(2) also, but you never understand what are all these things. Friendly relations with foreign states. Friendly relations with the foreign states. First exemption. They have added with first constitution amendment. Public order. The second constraint. Incitement to an offense. That means your speech must not incite somebody to do violence. Your speech must not disturb the public order. What does it mean, public order? Exacerbated or excavated or a over failure of law and order is public order. Simply if something happened, a riot happened in Trivandrum, that is not public order. That is not a disturbance of public order. It is the disturbance of law and order. So law and order's intensity is less, public order intensity is very high. That is the meaning of public order. Friendly relations with the foreign states. That means you are not supposed to give such a statements which will disturb the relations with the foreign countries. And if government finds out that your speeches are something like disturbing the relations with the foreign state, then your speech will be curtailed, or the right to speech will be curtailed. If government of India want to make a good relation with the China, but you are all making something statements against the China, then they may curtail your freedom of speech and expression. So 3 more exemptions were added to the list of exemptions under Article 19(2). Article 19(2). Now, after that, 16th Constitution Amendment. 16th Constitution Amendment. 16th Constitutional Amendment. Under this 16th Constitutional Amendment, we have added 2 exemptions. Two exemptions for freedom of speech and expression. Earlier were exemption to freedom of speech and expression. And I told you, you have a right of freedom of assembly or freedom of assembly. You have a freedom of association. So for all these 3 rights, we have added some exemption. That exemption is sovereignty and integrity of the country. Under 16th Constitution Amendment. That means if your speech is against the sovereignty and integrity of the country, then it can be curtailed. Your assembly, that means you people are grouped together, and if your assembly is against the sovereignty and integrity, it is curtailed. You have a freedom to associate. That means you need to start an organization. But if the government thinks that your organization is something against to the sovereignty and integrity of the country, then it will be banned. You are not supposed to have that organization. So these exemptions were given under 16th Constitution Amendment, and that two things we have added: sovereignty and integrity. And why we have added this sovereignty and integrity means, at that point of time, there was a war with China and some people are with the communists. And at that point of time, some of the communists said, like, some communist parties, not the mainstream communist party, but the banned Maoist party said, like, China's chairman is our chairman. That is what the statement they have given. And if you're looking into the Tamil Nadu, they have fought for the separate Dravida Desam. That means they need a separate Dravida Nadu. They want to secede it from the entire India. So such type of disturbances, and that too disturbance in northeastern India. I'll try to explain to some extent in the today's class, but I don't know whether time permits or not. But there are some of the disturbance happened in the northeastern state. Nagaland always questioning the sovereignty of India. Mijos question, Manipuri people question, some of the tribals question. So that was the time of 1962, 63, 64. At that point of time, everyone started questioning the sovereignty of India. And at that point of time, lot of theories were already developed that India is a diverse country. It cannot survive as a union. It cannot survive as a one country. Definitely within 10 or 15 minutes, 10 or 15 years, it will disintegrate, because such a diversity is there in this country. And in order to contain all those things, Indira Gandhi has come up with this amendment, and based on that amendment, we have enacted this Unlawful Activities Prevention Act in the year 1967. 1967. Now you understood the genesis of UPA. Okay? 1967. So what is this 1967 Act of UPA? See, if any of your activity, either it is a speech or expression, either it is an assembly or it is an association. See, if the government find out, like you are a person with the gun and you are killing somebody, then you no need to prosecute under UPA. There is a clear law that if you kill somebody, there is a law. If you kill somebody, there is a law, and under the law you will be prosecuted. But the problem comes, you are not owning the weapon, you are conspiring, you have some organization, but we cannot prove it. If you are like an Ajmal Kasab, then it is very easy to prosecute. But if it is something like another organization where they don't come forward, but they will do all other activities. Even if it is the Maoists, they are with weapons. You can prosecute them easily. But there are some organizations, they are instilling the feelings of separatism, and that has become a threat to the security and integrity of the country. And in order to deal with those forces, this UPA was brought. Don't say like UPA was not on Ajmal Kasab. No. UPA was only a restriction on a group of people who are exercising their freedom of speech and expression, a group of people who are assembled, a group of people who formed an association. Because we wanted to curtail their fundamental rights. And if we think that their activities, that means their operations or their assembly or their association, and if their speech is against the interest of the security and integrity of the country, then we will prosecute under UPA. Now in this, they have defined the terrorism. They have defined the terrorism. They have defined the terrorist act. That means what are the terrorist acts comes under. They have defined the terrorist organizations. Terrorist organizations. organizations. I don't want to getting into the provisions of UPA because we are not here to learn the entire provisions of UPA. But strictly, it will define this terrorism, terrorist act, and terrorist organizations. In order to contain the situation of decade of 1960s. Okay, after that it was fine. But again, the one more challenge came to India with the Khalistan movement. And you will study Khalistan movement in your post-independent India. And with this Khalistani movement, they pose a threat to the security of the country once again, because they need a separate country. Because Punjabi people want to secede it from the, again, India. Then Indira Gandhi to some extent tried her level best. But we know, I think some people who are having some history of this Punjab and Khalistan, they can understand how there was an attack on Harmandir Sahiba and how it has led to lot of problem, and how it ultimately led to the demise of Indira Gandhi. These are all stories you will study in the post-independent India, but you must know all these things. You must know. In the year 1987, 1986 and 1987, the then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi brought in another act called TADA. Though we have this UPA, but at that point of time, we realized that this UPA may not be sufficient to handle some of the activities, because the powers that are conferring under UPA were less. So we needed another strict law called TADA. Terrorist Activities Disruption Act. Terrorist and Disruptive Activities Prevention Act. Terrorist and Disruptive Activities Prevention Act. That is TADA. TADA was brought. And under the TADA, they have prosecuted some people, because Assam agitation came at that point of time. Punjab agitation was there. Northeastern agitation was there. Sri Lankan agitation was there. So a lot of issues are there, and we have tried to some extent with the TADA. But over a period of time, we realized that this TADA is also not so effective. Then they brought POTA. After this Godhra incident, they brought POTA. And if you want to know Godhra incident, just go to the history books, you will understand. POTA, Prevention of Terrorist Activities Act, was brought in the year 2002. And the TADA was cancelled and they brought the POTA. And POTA is such a dangerous act, where if I have a doubt on you, then immediately I can kill you. If I have a doubt, I can kill you. That was the dangerousness of POTA. And do you need any reason to believe that this person is really a terrorist or not? No need. Such type of act it was. Then immediately, the then Congress government, when they came to power in the year 2004, they have done away with this POTA. But they have strengthened the UPA. They have done away with the POTA. They have strengthened the UPA. That is how UPA was strengthened in 2004. UPA was strengthened in the year 2004. Again, you know what happened in the year 2008? Is there any important incident that was there in the year 2018? 2008? Mumbai attacks. After that, I think we have miserably failed in that entire activities. And I think maybe you will read in Science and Technology. This was the satellite we have deployed after 2008. RESAT-2, Synthetic Aperture Radar Satellite. Even it can identify the people at the night, and even in a cloudy condition, and even in a rainy condition also, they can identify who are really entering into the Indian borders. Synthetic Aperture Radar. This was a satellite we have introduced, but anyhow, 26 by 11, after 26 by 11, we have again strengthened this UPA. Again, we have strengthened the UPA. And now what we have said is in this amendment, even without a full charge sheet, a person can be under the custody for a maximum period of time. I'll explain this point later. Even without a charge sheet, a person can be under a custody for a maximum period of time. Maximum period of time. I'll come to this later. And over a period of time, we have widened the definition of terrorism. Over a period of time, we have widened the definition of terrorism. To what extent we have widened the definition of terrorism means we have criminalized the ideology. We have criminalized the ideology. I'll tell you. A mere possession of literature is also a crime. Mere a possession of literature is also a crime. Member of such organization is also a crime. Member of such an organization is a crime. If you observe these points clearly, here even without involving in any violence, also, if you just mere possess the ideology, you will be the criminal under this. And they can declare any organization as a banned organization. I'll come to that banned organization later. But what does it mean criminalizing the ideology? See, in this country, there are different type of ideologies are there. And we can brand every ideology as a terrorist. There is a communist terrorist is there in this country. There is a saffron terrorist is there in this country. There is an Islamic terrorist there in this country. Why actually these Maoists are the person who believes in Hinduism, are the person who believes in Islam, are the person who believes in a different ideology has branded as a terrorist? First of all, we need to understand. Actually, the thing is, we wanted to brand these ideologies as a terrorist because at one or other point of time, they have involved in violence activity. And once we decided like these groups have started involving in the violence activity, and that too they are mobilizing the mass base, then immediately we said these are the terrorists and association with the groups is a terrorist activity. Okay, if anyone involves in the violence and if anyone with the help of any violent activity, if they want to achieve their targets through this violent means, that is a terrorism activity. Whether maybe it is for the sake of good of the country, but still the means, if the mean is a violence, then you can call it as a terrorism. But mere possession of ideology, can you call it as a terrorist activity? This was a big debate. See, I'll give example to each and everything. Take the case of Maoist ideology. The Maoists are having a different ideology that in this democratic process we cannot develop. These inequalities will continue over a period of time, and the solution lies in the philosophy of the Marx, where the class struggle is necessary. That means the working class must fight against the ruling class, then only we can bring a people's state, and in that state there is no inequality, everyone is equal. That's the ideology. But by looking into these all inequalities, and as day by day the inequalities are increasing, if mere I have an ideology that if really that society comes, how good it is, I may have that right. I may not directly involved in that, but still I believe that, okay, if really that communist, okay, if really that revolution comes, if we really get that equal society, it's really a good society, no? Why should not we get that type of society? It's a mere possession of ideology. No way I'm the member of that organization. No way I'm directly involved with the activity. Take the case of saffron terrorism. If I want to build this country on Hindu lines or Hindu Rashtra or Hindutva lines, what's wrong with that? Don't I have a right to imagine this country that I should have some, my country's legacy is very good and I should follow that legacy? And instead of having all these Western philosophies, why can't I build my society on my traditional lines? My society must build on the lines of the Hindu Rashtra or Hindu lines or whatever the Hindu mythology. And maybe some Islamic terrorism is there. They wanted to build the entire country on Shariat lines. And as a majority people, we may not agree to that. But as a minority, he must have that right. If really my country builds on Shariat like, it's better because it was mentioned in the Shariat like it's an ideal society where there is no inequality and where there is no corruption and where there is no discrimination. The problem is, if you use violent means, that's fine. You will be branded as a terrorist. But mere ideology, possession of mere ideology, we are criminalizing it. That is something wrong. Because I should have that freedom. And today, some people believe that this country must be developed on the lines of Mahatma Gandhi philosophy. Some people believe that this country must be built on the philosophy of Nehru because he was the visionary. But today, a party is in power. They wanted to build this country on the lines of maybe Upadhyaya, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya. Some people are still working in this country. They wanted to build this country on the lines of Marx. Wherever the solution presents, that type of country we can build it. But the only point is, you should not use the violence as a means to pull down the existing state because this is democratically elected state. It's not a simply state nominated by somebody. If you're really able to convince the people in this country that yes, we can bring the Marxian country, Marxian state, yes, that is acceptable. If everyone come forward, that's fine. But few people, by using violence as a means, if they want to pull down the existing government, if they use their means which will act against the interests of sovereignty and integrity of the country, that is the wrong thing. But unfortunately, we have criminalized even the ideology also. If you are a sympathizer, then you can be put behind the bar. Mere possession of literature. If I find some Kobad Gandhi as a terrorist and he was a Maoist, and if I possess the writings of Kobad Gandhi, because I want to know what Kobad Gandhi's ideology is, he was a Maoist. I want to read some writings of somebody. Mere reading of a book, mere possessing an ideology, can you call it as a terrorist? Is it not something a violation of your fundamental right? What we have said in our fundamental right, we have a freedom of speech and expression. And in the preamble itself, we have that freedom of thought. We must have a freedom to think in what way my country should develop. And after all, we are all working for the same thing. We wanted an indiscriminate society. We wanted an equal society. We wanted a moral society, but our roots are different. But just because I possess the literature, now I became the terrorist. Member of such organization, how will you decide whether he is a member of such organization? Do you think that you will hold a ID card? No. There is no ID card for banned Maoist organization. There is no ID card for Islamic terrorist organizations. If government thinks that you are the member of that organization, then they can arrest you. So that is how we have criminalized, and this was came in the year 2012 amendment. And today Congress party can speak many things, but the same Congress people brought these things. Why I am giving this is, in today's politics, normally you will go with the opposition view. Normally you think that what opposition says as a counterpoint you can write in the exam. Don't go with all the political statements. Otherwise you will be bluffed. If Congress party says that this brings corporatization in the agriculture sector, farm laws, if you write that point, no, then examiner thinks that he don't know anything except to listen to the views of the politicians. You have to be very careful. But this country has terrorized the ideology. This country has terrorized the mere possession of literature. This country terrorized membership of such an organization, and we don't know how to prove it. How to prove it? And they are started banning the organization. And how this organization will ban? There is a tribunal. There is a tribunal. Tribunal means a persons who are performing the judicial activities. Again, commission is different. Tribunal is different. Tribunal will perform again judicial functions with some administrative function, but they are like the judges. And the tribunal will looking into this entire process, and they will ban the organizations. Once the organization is banned, people associated with all that banned organization, if they really come to the notice of the police, then they will be caught. This was brought in the year 2012. And recently in the year 2019, we have brought some more changes. Some more changes. 2019, again this UPA was amended. They have used the words like commits or participates in terrorism. Commits or participate in terrorism. Participate in terrorism. Second one, prepares for terrorism. Prepares for terrorism. Promotes terrorism. Promotes terrorism. Involved in terrorism. Involved in terrorism. One more thing what they have done in the year 2019 is there are offenses called scheduled offenses. Because some of the offenses are mentioned in the schedule of your penal code, some of the scheduled offenses were also brought under this UPA. That means it's not only the against the interest of security and integrity of the country, even if you commit those crimes also, you will be prosecuted under UPA. And one of the things they have brought is this economic security. Earlier we used to have only security and integrity, but they brought economic security as a point. Economic security means if you are a threat to fiscal security, if you are the threat to the monetary security, if you are the threat to the food security, if you are the threat to the any defense related security, then you will be punished under this UPA. So the UPA is widened. UPA is widened. UPA is widened, and even ecological and environmental security also comes under economic security. So if you are causing a security threat against the interest of this country's economic security, that includes fiscal security, monetary. Suppose if you are attacking a Reserve Bank of India, then it's a threat to economic security. If you want to crash the stock market, it's an economic security. So like if you do those type of crimes also, you will be now prosecuted under UPA. And one major thing that we have brought under this UPA is earlier only organizations are banned as a terrorist, but now individuals can also be banned as a terrorist. Individual persons can also be now banned as the terrorist. Earlier there was no provision like individual people will be banned as a terrorist. Only groups are banned as a terrorist. But now individual people can be branded as a terrorist. Who will brand these terrorists? It is the Home Ministry. Home Ministry. There actually the problem lies. Because in case of organization, I said it was the tribunal. See, you have committed a particular crime or an activity. You believe that it is not a terrorist activity, but somebody believes that it is a terrorist activity. That means you have done a crime, that crime must be established. And who has to establish that crime? It is the judges. In our system, suppose you have committed a crime, who will decide whether you are a criminal or not? It is the only court. Apart from court, no one has any authority to decide you as a terrorist, because the accusation can be made by anyone, but the conviction can only be done by the court. And here, when you say like some organization is a terrorist organization, the tribunal was there. I told tribunal is something like a judges, they can decide. But here, who is branding you as a terrorist? It's an officer is doing. The state is doing. State cannot perform the judge's function. States cannot function a judicial function. State is after all an executive authority. But how come you decide a person as a terrorist? If really a court decides that this person is a terrorist, that's fine. That is one wrong thing that happened in this. But anyhow, no one has questioned. I don't know whether it is in the Supreme Court or not. But the 2019 amendments include the participation, promotion, prepares involving the terrorist activities, and it also brought scheduled offenses under the definition of UPA, and they have also brought economic security concept, and also now they have started branding individuals as the terrorists. Individuals as the terrorist. Now, okay, they are branding. Then what is the problem? Like in many cases, many people are arrested. Why there is a problem only with this UPA? Why not with the other cases? Because in UPA, there is a provision called 43D5. Generally, you will see it in the newspaper. 43D5. There was a provision, very strict provision. See, normally, if you are committed a crime, I think to some of the students I have explained while I am taking in the newspaper, but still I want to, because you need to understand it comprehensively. You have committed a crime first. First, where will you go? You'll go to police station. They file FIR. And after that, you will be produced before the magistrate. And magistrate will send you for remand. Remand is nothing but judicial custody, normally for 14 days, and it will be extended by 14 days, up to 45 days or 60 days, normally. Sometimes in some cases, it can be extended up to 60, 65, 70. But until and unless it is a very specific crime, they don't. So you will be in the judicial custody, that means in jail for some days. After that, the judge will give a bail to you. Why judge has given the bail now? Why not immediately? Because meanwhile, that means when you are under this remand, the police officers will do investigation. This is the first prime report. They will do investigation whether this person has committed that crime or not. If you are outside the jail, you may influence the witnesses. That is the reason why they put you under the jail for some time. Meanwhile, the police officer has to complete its own investigation. Then you will be under bail. After some days, police persons with the investigation report, they will bring a detailed report copy on your crime, that we call it as charge sheet. Once the charge sheet is placed, now your defendant lawyer and the lawyer from the government, they both will come and they will try to argue on this charge sheet. Once the arguments are over, and if the judge thinks that you are a criminal and you have committed the crime, then he will award the sentence. Then you will go to the jail, whether it is 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. Unfortunately, this process takes a lot of time in India. Now I'll come to UPA. In this UPA, normally without a charge sheet, you can be placed under the remand or judicial custody for 90 days. This can be extended by another 90 days. That means for total 180 days, you can be put under the judicial custody or remand without charge sheet. Then what about after 180 days? Then what about after 180 days? In normal cases, it is not 180 days. In normal case, it has to be given in within 60 days or 65 days. But in the UPA, up to 180 days, without any charge sheet, you can be placed under the judicial custody. Now, after 180 days, you have to file a charge sheet. But generally, they don't provide the charge sheet. What they will do is, the section 43D5 says, if the judge believes that there is a prima facie evidence against you, then you will be under the custody of judges or police. That means the term meaning I'll tell you. See, there was a serious crime happened in this hall. We are all anti-nationals and we are discussing something, how to tackle the government of India, this thing. And some person has there on that steps. We don't know why that person came here. We don't know whether that person has entered this hall, whether that person is belonging to this group or not, it's unnecessary. But the moment the police record says that that person is roaming near to that hall, then that is a prima facie evidence, a primary evidence that okay, this person might involve in that. Can you say that this person is completely not associated with the activity, what is happening inside the hall? Can you say? You can't say. At the same time, you cannot say that he person is involved here. But the prima facie evidence, if the judge finds that there is a prima facie evidence, then you can be put behind the bar for any number of years. Any number of years. The prima facie evidence is sufficient. Moreover, these people, they don't file the full charge sheet. They will bring a part of charge sheet, and every time they say, okay, we have completed some investigation, so we have filed the charge sheet, and next we will place it in the next 6 months. So this person has to be in the jail for another 6 months, and after 6 months again they will bring another half of the or another part of charge sheet. Again they will say that, sir, we will present the full charge sheet in coming 6 months. Again that person has to be in jail for 6 months. And over a period of time, the judge is believing that this person is having, there is a prima facie evidence is having against this person. But our Indian jurisprudence says one thing: until and unless it is proved you are an innocent. Until and unless it is proved you are an innocent. That means if the case is proved, then only you will be the guilty. And you know, there was a judge from Kerala, V.R. Krishna Iyer. And V.R. Krishna Iyer was a senior judge, and he was interpreted the jurisprudence in a different way. He said like, bail is a rule, jail is an exception. He said, bail is a rule, jail is an exception. That means you have to give the bail. That is a rule. And if there is any extraordinary condition, then you can send him to the jail. But otherwise, until and unless it is proved, you can. Until and unless it is proved, you cannot send the person to the jail. Send the person to the jail. I think it's a tea break. I'll 2 to 3 minutes because it is in the middle of the discussion. But that is what V.R. Krishnayer's point of view. But unfortunately, in UPA, what happened is, until and unless it is proved, you are the guilty. Until and unless it is proved, you are the guilty. And one thing, judge always believes that there is a prima facie evidence against you. If at all you want a bail, you need to prove yourself. You need to prove yourself that I am not involved in this activity. What type of evidence you will bring, it is up to you. But in other cases, it is the burden of proof not lies on me, but it is lies on the government. If I committed a crime, I don't do anything. Simply I'll go and I'll stand on the bone. And it is the government has to prove that I have committed the crime. But whereas in case of UPA, it is myself, I have to prove myself that I haven't committed this crime. Please release me. But judge say that there is a prima facie evidence, I don't release you. Likewise, these people are languishing in jails for years and years and years together. That is the problem with the UPA. If he really commits a crime, if he really involves in these anti-national activities, you could have proved it. Why you are not proving for years and years? Do you have such an inefficient investigation system in this country? And on the name of this, for years and years, you are languishing the people under the jail so that you are depriving their fundamental rights. That is the main issue here. If he really commits a crime, if you prove, then it's nothing wrong. You are not proving, you are not even filing the charge sheet, but you are allowing the people to languish in the jails for years and years, which is against the spirit of democracy. A republic cannot kill its own people. A republic cannot have a suspicion on its own people. But our republic have a lot of suspicion on some of the people. And most of the people believes that, unfortunately, this UPA is most of the times is using against the people who are having a different ideology of the political party who are in power. That is how we are doing. So the 2019 Act and 2012 Act brought a lot of stringent provisions because it is, but unfortunately, these are depriving the people of their fundamental right. And there are a lot of loopholes in that prosecution system. Until and unless we can improve our investigation agencies, certainly we cannot solve this problem. But some people are asking for removal of UPA. Perhaps in my point of view, removal of UPA is not a better idea, but better utilization, the thing that we need to improve, because earlier we have a lot of acts like TADA and POTA. Now we have removed all the acts. Now we have only with the UPA. If someone has to remove with the UPA, if tomorrow something happens, then who has to take the responsibility? But a judicious use of UPA is very, very important because it is associated with the fundamental rights. And a country which born with full freedoms, unfortunately come up with lot of restrictions. Now that restrictions are reached to such a stage where we are criminalizing an ideology, we are criminalizing just because if we have some sort of beliefs. That is not at all acceptable. That is not at all acceptable. Okay, if you have any evidence, try to do it. The conviction rate of UPA is what? Very low. In how many days you are filing a charge sheet? You have not even filed a charge sheet in Bhima Koregaon case. It happened in the year 2018, if I'm not wrong. 2018. 18, 19, 20, 21. 4 years you don't file a charge sheet. That means you have not completed the investigation at all. And all the people are now languishing in the jail. They are bringing very new crimes and all. But try to understand both the sides of the view. Under what circumstances we have brought this legislation and how we are misusing it. Okay, so I'll just read a question which was asked in UPSC 2019 for your convenience. Indian government has recently strengthened the anti-terrorism laws by amending the Unlawful Activities Act, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. They also included NIA, but forget about NIA. Analyze the changes in the context of prevailing security environment while discussing the scope and reason for opposing the UPA by human rights organization. So you have to write under the present security challenges, how it is helpful, but at the same time, the human rights organizations are criticizing this law, why they are criticizing. Okay, if you are interested, try to write the answer. Why human rights activist means now what I have criticized, that is what they are also criticizing. What are the provisions? Now if you use VR Krishna Iyer, your answer will be so effective. If you write the quotations from anywhere, the answers will be more effective. So just try to write the answer, we'll see how you will write. But while you are writing, just keep the history in the mind. You no need to write from 1967, 1951, but you have to make the statements in such a way by keeping the history in mind, whatever the line you are writing. Okay, so now you take the break, and after that we'll go with other topics. Okay, and one more thing with respect to UPA, there is no anticipatory bail. Do you know what is anticipatory bail? In advance, if you came to know that police are going to arrest, see, suppose there is a crime suppose just assume in that crime and he and me both are involved, people suddenly arrested this guy, then immediately I'll go to the court and I'll seek an anticipatory bail. If I have an anticipatory bail, police should not arrest me, but there is no anticipatory bail for UPA. Okay, and what was that Sunday's news item with respect to the Sudha Bharadwaj is, because I have explained all these things, but still you don't know what was exactly the issue of Sudha Bharadwaj. See, Sudha Bharadwaj arrested under UPA, under Bhima Koregaon case, and that 90 plus 90, 180 days completed. They are filing a charge sheet, a simple charge sheet, a part of full charge sheet. They are asking, okay, we are doing the investigation, we want more time. Again, they are filing a small charge sheet, and again they are seeking the extension. Now the case involved with Sudha Bharadwaj is the extension given by the judge is not a competent judge. There must be an NIA court, and NIA judge should issue the bail. The bail was issued by the session judge. The session judge don't have an authority to issue that bail, to issue that extension to Sudha Bharadwaj. So please cancel it. Very simple, minor. That is why you always, I think you might have some technical reasons. If you really read that, you might understand. It's on purely technical reasons. That's the issue. Okay. But under UPA, you can put the people under jail for many years.
Amrita IAS Academy.